Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Aurovilians. Welcome, Holger. Today, I'd like to go into what is the new music. And this is a very profound question because one can see it from all the stages of humanity, from matter to and body, to life and mind, and to all those ranges above the mind that can be brought down into the earthly atmosphere, the sacred earth atmosphere. What is new music? Tough question I put to you.
Well, first, I would like to point out that a single word like new or love or divine says nothing in itself. So it's useful to break it up a little bit, since talking has to do with the mind. So I would say new can be in a cultural context of a unfolding. So then 12-tone music was new compared to
To the past.
tonal music,
Yes,
to the past. Exactly. So if we're going that line, then we could say that Scelsi, you mentioned him the other day, Scelsi is new compared to Alban Berg. Or definitely Steve Reich. So this what I last time complained a little bit about, that I say Berg is romantic music.
Mm-hmm.
The spirit behind it is romantic, just the devices he is creating with are new. But the spirit is not new.
But when you mentioned Scelsi, I wanted to also say, because I studied him quite fairly good, I read a long article by this lady who was with him for a long time, and he said always, it is Sri Aurobindo who is inspiring me. And he knew it. He was a disciple, not a devotee.
Mm-hmm. And I can very well understand that and hear it, actually. Maybe not as specific as in, oh yeah, that's Sri Aurobindo,
No.
but definitely in that newness that I would want to speak about right now, that I say, what are we invoking when we create a music piece or when we improvise? What spirit, what experience are we having or invoking, hope to invoke in others even, maybe? That would be in a minimal music of the 70s, 60s, 70s, like Steve Reich, something very different than, and very much more modern or new, maybe not modern, but new, compared to Wozzeck. Yeah? Where the emotion and the anguish of the being and envy and jealousy, possession, these things are very important. Salome or all these examples. But in a clapping music for 12 clappers, there is no such thing. It's not interesting. That whole topic is not interesting. Music for large ensemble is like, everything is like that. So what is this even about? It's not about, I love this girl, or I don't, or I die for my country. These things are not there in this vibration. So what is that which Beethoven doesn't do? Because he cannot even think it at the time. Time is not, this vibration has not come down. Now I'm not sure if this is maybe over the top to say Steve Reich brought it down. Sounds very heroic to me. Yeah? It's more like it's coming down and then he is feeling it and responds to it in an appropriate way.
Possibly.
Or say, for example, also something I actually like if we are going more into the conceptual art, there is a painter called Rauschenberg. You know that? Have you heard of that? Anyway, he made a painting which is called Erased de König, or König, who was a senior to him, a painter, who he liked very much, and he bought a painting from him, and in a 2 months' work, he removed everything. He could have also bought a white canvas and hang it there. No, he didn't. He removed as many traces of all that painting, which was multiple, it was oil, it was different media. So for each, here he needed a razor, here he needed a scraper, and so on. And it hangs in a gallery, and it's like a gray-white canvas with some traces of something you can't identify. Now that is new. And while it is leaning strongly to the conceptual art, which I'm not that much of a fan of, I totally have great respect for that. I like that because it is the experience of meditation, where you are, first of all, busy with erasing so many things, like of your personal history. Let go of that. This thought is gone. In the hope, or so, in having this prospect of getting some kind of, what is there if there is not, my neighbor did that to me, or I want this for my daughter. When that is not there, what is there then? We are interested in that.
Yes.
So this Rauschenberg was interested, what is there? But it's not a white canvas. It's the result of something erased. And he was a meditator.
A paring down.
Yes.
Now, the minimalists have tried this.
Absolutely.
And Arvo Pärt is amongst the most well-known of them.
Now, yes.
But what have they achieved?
Well, to me, quite a bit. It's on the, I mean, outside, if you ask of that, factually, yes, they have achieved quite a bit. If you now listen to useful popular music, like film music, or even pop music, they all draw from that. Yeah? There are these little patterns that move in itself, these loops.
Loops, exactly.
You have them in the background of an arrangement of Sting, a pop song. Then you hear that and you say, that is not recorded in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 50s. Cannot. So those who bring that down, this new device of it's not when does the music start. This is the music. I find it very valuable. Of course, it's like 12-tone music, only a phase, and that phase is probably over.
I think it's probably over, yes.
Maybe already 20 years ago it was over, but it had its very important new point there.
Who are the new voices in the new music, in classical music?
You mean singing voices?
No,
uh,
composers.
composers. I'm not knowledgeable about it.
Ah.
I do not know because it's a large field. Music anyway is such a large field, and I'm leaning towards improvisation. And if I'm an interpreter, I'm leaning to the classical music, Baroque, etc., etc. I like that to play. I never played, for example, myself on the violin von Webern. Then, when I was doing this, and it's a hard work, as you know, then I was already starting to lean towards the jazz. So I can say in the jazz, yes, there I could say, for example, that Brett Meldau is, with his trio work especially, advancing the music history.
Can you spell his name for people?
Oh, Meldau, Meldau, I think.
A-U, D-A-U.
Meldau.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe with an H, Meldau? Meldau?
No, I think it's M-E-L-D.
I forgot.
Maybe H-A-U, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I liked very much because I know the classical music, and I felt always an urge and did experiments on reintroducing improvisation into the classical music, which is very difficult. First, it's sacrilegious, and you cannot just suddenly play something else when you play Bach. And then you play Bach, and it's so good that you don't even want to play something else. And yet I tried. For example, some nice thing I did with a bass player here in Auroville, with a bass player was I took the two-part invention in D minor. I think it's number 4 or 5. This one. And I took that and analyzed it harmonically speaking, and to play freely over a harmonic system is sort of the base, the bread and butter thing of a jazz musician, right? So you would play this chord progression and improvise over that, and therefore it should fit more or less more to what Bach has been writing. And in fact, this is also something that Bach himself did very consciously. It's just not so known. You know, the B minor partita of the solo sonatas for violin is 8 pieces. It's 4 dances, and after every dance comes a double. The second one quite famous, do ba di da da di do di do bi da ba di da do bi ba bi da da do di di ba do bi do ba ba, and so on. And I loved that as a child, and I could play it. It's not that difficult, this particular double, and that's that. And then I never actually wondered why it's called double. It's exactly the same chords as the piece before. And you cannot recognize it if you don't have that talented ear for the flow of harmonies, or the knowledge or the skill. It's a different piece. But you can play the first piece and the second piece literally at the same time, and it sounds good. So that means when Bach composes, he, at total ease, has complete knowledge over the whole piece in its harmonic flow. And he goes one time like that over it, or you want it in 16ths, or you want it in triplets, or you want it like this, or you want it like a fugue. Anytime he could do that, like this. Unbelievable skill level.
Yes.
And jazz musicians try that. And when they play Bach, and they are also attracted to Bach, they say, oh, that was actually like a jazz musician. He did that. And so Brad Meldau recently brought out a recording which is called After Bach, where he says, then let me do that. I play a Bach piece as I love it, as Bach has written it, and after Bach, I play something that spins on the same idea in the way I do it in the 21st century. And because he is like such in command, he's a player like, I would say, like Glenn Gould. You see the consciousness in all his notes he's doing, but on the energetic drive level that appears in this way, I would say, only in jazz. So it's really quite a growth of culture of mankind to be able to marry this. People have tried in the 40s already, you know, like Benny Goodman played some Mozart. Pretty much a failure. Or Yehuda Menuhin played with Stefan Grappelli. I like Menuhin, but it's pretty much a failure. It's not jazz. But now the time is ripe for that. So there is a little progress. In that sense, new, culturally new. Not possible 40 years ago. For no genius. Greater geniuses maybe than Meldau couldn't do it 40 years ago. Now we can. Does that count for new?
Well, it's certainly an evolutionary progress.
Right. So who brought it down? I don't know. Can't say. Is it even necessary to think of an activity of a single human being to bring something down? Is this not maybe obsolete, if even that is maybe a old thinking? As you say, who brings down the Om choir music? Well, hopefully nobody. Because if somebody comes to your Om choir and has the strong resolve to bring it down, he will probably disturb quite a bit.
He probably what?
He will probably disturb quite a bit.
Oh, it's happened many times.
See, that's what I mean.
A good opera singer
Oh,
can be a disaster for an Om choir.
exactly.
Because the ego is usually so strong, the voice is beautiful.
Well, all these
I've
kind
got
of things.
everything and I'll sing and everyone will hear me. No, it's
You don't want to have Pavarotti singing in your Om choir.
Absolutely right. Well, I have so many more things to ask you. They're not always new music, but there are things that have touched me very deeply. When I listen to the Adagio movement of Schubert's string quintet, I am moved.
It works every time.
It works every time.
Yes.
But even to listen to the second movement of the violin concerto.
Barber.
Huh?
Barber, no? Samuel Barber?
Samuel Barber.
Yeah.
Same thing happens to me.
Yes.
Why?
There I would point out what we didn't do in the beginning, where I said what new and so on. That you would probably find more in your personal inclination and receptivity to certain movements.
Correct.
It has not so much to do with new. That's why
No,
you already
it
said it,
doesn't,
doesn't it?
right.
So, for example, Barber definitely was not new. Nothing he wrote. It is actually, one has to probably, if one wants to rate this, which I don't want, but if one would rate him, he is not a first-grade composer. Why? Because I couldn't say about his skill set, which is very good, and I wouldn't know why this is not so great, but I could say it has been there 100 years before. So if you write something now with a high skill level, you write something now in the spirit of the Baroque music, which people do. Today it's not so difficult anymore. Yeah. Then, or you play guitar like in the spirit of Led Zeppelin. So what? Today, every good guitar player can play like Jimmy Page. Yeah, but Jimmy Page made it. There's a big difference. And then it's available for all the normal people. So from that, I think reality, cultural reality, stems the great respect we have for the originators of something. So Barber was not such an originator.
But in his choral music, he brought something down that was special.
You can bring something down without being an originator.
Absolutely.
That is very possible.
Absolutely.
That's actually normal.
Normal, I would say, yes.
Yes. But Schubert was an originator, even without knowing. He thought of himself as running after Beethoven and not reaching him, which is same town, few years older, and that massive skill set, and the little Schubert just couldn't match that. Weird fate, isn't it? But in retrospect, 150 years later, you can say that he's not as wide active as Beethoven was. But the quintet, the string quintet, is a piece of one of a kind that stands right next, for me at least, I must say, right next to great pieces of Beethoven.
I would agree.
And Barber has not achieved that level. And that is because he is in love with a certain, he is in love with a recreation. And the creation is also more scary because you don't know what you're doing. That's not for everybody.
No. Very true.
When it goes extreme, the recreation becomes flatness, commonplace. Then everybody says, yeah, it's okay. Yeah. That is when it deteriorates more. That's not the case for Barber, of course. Yeah? Or certain, like for example, there is this successful filmmaker, Tarantino.
Oh, yes, Quentin Tarantino.
Quentin Tarantino. And at first, with Pulp Fiction, I was impressed, and certain earlier works of him also. And then you see this power of creation that he has. But then, the more and more you see his movies, you understand, oh, he is recreating other movies he has seen. He is not even attempting something that Shakespeare does all the time. He creates a living character that is alive for 500 years. Richard the Third is so much that unbelievable character that everybody says, I know him. But it's actually created, really, from life soul. And Tarantino doesn't do that. He doesn't create his figures from life. He creates it from another movie. Still nice movie, yes, but not on that level.
No.
Not on the level like Apocalypse Now, But these characters are, they are in the filmmaking thing like avatars, no?
But they're incredible, huh?
Yeah, that is this Colonel Kurtz. It's unbelievable how to create something. Even he got all the help from Joseph Conrad. So credits go to a book at least, but not to a film that was done 5 years before. At least he goes back to Conrad, and that for you know Apocalypse Now.
Very well.
Yes, and you know his blueprint of making that film was Heart of Darkness.
Heart of Darkness of Conrad. Yeah.
You know that. And he asked his actor, everybody was supposed to read that. And the main actor at the end, what was his name?
Brando.
Brando. He didn't read it. He had already the money and he didn't read it. And the script was not finished. And they started filming. It was half improvised, the whole last scene.
It was what?
Half improvised.
Ah.
It's impressive. He said, I don't want to have a full body shot because he was vain and fat. I want to have everything in half dark.
In what?
In half dark.
Half dark. Ah.
And
So-
I want another million.
So he had control of it, huh?
It was the big star, no?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what can Coppola do? He sold his house and everything. Horrible, horrible. And then in this situation, they make that ending, which is film history. Because of that power of two things, improvisation and flexibility, and super high skill. Great filmmaker, great actor. And then something like that comes out. And this deserves that kind of respect. So I always feel what we for the past 50 years did in Auroville deserves that kind of respect. Maybe, okay, we don't have that skill level, that's true. But then the art is not even defined. At least when you do filmmaking, you know, at the end it's going to the cinema. We don't even have that luxury.
It is a totally new world
Yeah,
that we are living in and
Yeah.
breathing, actually.
yeah.
You know, there's a flower that Mother named Miracle,
Yes.
and she also named it a second name, Air of Auroville.
Oh, I didn't
So
know that.
we breathe the air of Auroville, which is a miracle. We're breathing that miracle.
Nice one. I didn't know.
Yes, yes. Of your personal history, you love the Baroque.
Yeah.
Could you give us some evolutionary understanding of the beginning of music to the current music? So what was before Baroque? What was before?
Oh my God.
I know, it's a tough one.
Aren't there other people much more knowledgeable? See, for me, I'm always going through music. I'm not a historian. Yeah, and I'm also really not good at it. When I say, "Oh, I get that feeling with Schubert," it's maybe because of 4 pieces I played and practiced. Okay, yeah, in the church I got $80 for playing second violin of the Schubert Mass and so on. So I played through it, but you're busy with getting the right notes and it's not knowing the piece, it's driving through. This is not what I count. But I played the Trout Quintet, and I played the String Quintet, and I played Death and Maiden. And the Schubert Sonatine, and that's it.
5 things.
Yeah, from that I derive all, and I read 2 books about him, One of it really nice and new. And from that I synthesize an image of Schubert that nowhere near to knowing what Schubert is or posing as a kind of authority and tell other people what they should think of Schubert. Really not. What I do have, what interests you, is that I'm not just listening, I'm experiencing rather deep some of these things. So I experience quite deep on the various levels it exists, say, a Bach E major violin concerto. That means I can play it, I understand the construction, I know the harmonies in it, and so on and so on. So slowly it comes to a point where I say I could have composed it if I had that kind of skill and command directly, not after studying it for half a lifetime. Yeah?
Because you know it so well.
I know it well.
And so intimately.
Yes, I know all the lines in it, all the orchestra lines and so on. Yeah? So that's nice. And then I experience it from different players, and then I say, oh, what is Perlman doing with that concert? How is he playing so confident and healthy over this fragile line, for example? Or even the other way around, why does Kremer make a problem out of that? It's just that. But he makes out of everything a problem, no?
Who?
Gidon Kremer.
Gidon Kremer.
Yeah, he's one of my very beloved great players, but one has to say, if it's not a problem, it's not for Kremer. He cannot just play something. Everything must be... That's his character. And Perlman's is very different. And so everyone has his personal approach. So I feel like talking about music history or so, we really should listen to people like Joachim Kaiser. You sent me that the other day. These are people who know how is that development.
Yes.
I can say, to give a little bit of a personal, subjective answer to your question, is that there was very great music at all times in history. Which is something to say, because people think that with the classical period, the greatness after that is declining.
Yeah, I've heard it so often.
It's often said.
Yes.
And I, of course, said it also, and I don't say it at all anymore. And that's probably Sri Aurobindo's influence. That's probably Sri Aurobindo's influence.
Probably, yes.
Yeah, because I say, no. This is not... like when I was young, I was also interested in Rousseau and back to the nature and all these kind of things. That's so over. Back to nature is really not what we have to do.
Thoreau. Henry Thoreau.
Huh?
Thoreau in America.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What is that?
Here, back to nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm love to sit in the garden and watch the birds, but especially when watching the birds, this romantic idea, and back to the nature, Rousseau is very romantic, that romantic idea, there's a German song, folk song, ach, wenn ich doch ein Vöglein wär und auch zwei Flügel hätte. If I were a bird and had two wings, I would fly away, and so on. You know, you just sit there in the garden and you watch the birds. They're not that free and happy. They are in a permanent death threat, and they know it. They look around all the time. So what you talk about back to nature, that's what it is about, unlikely.
Well, this is what we're going through in the Gita also, because
Exactly.
Exactly what Sri Aurobindo is saying. Those who would eliminate all negativity and violence and destruction from the divine are not seeing the divine.
No.
Because he is that also.
Yes. And we must say, as much as I like, really much, Bach, Closer to You, that this choral, Closer to You, Jesus, I don't know how in English.
Jesus, meine Freude.
Jesus, meine Freude. You know it, huh?
Yeah, I know it.
And it's, wow, so nice. But this is what Sri Aurobindo talks about, because from that Protestant image of God, that is eliminated.
Yes.
And yeah, it's still very beautiful, but it is not complete.
Yes.
And Scelsi, for example, is not like that. Yeah, when he is writing something that is like full of darkness, but not so obsessed with the darkness in a romantic way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so not negative per se, but it's more. You can get quite scared listening to Scelsi orchestral stuff.
Yes, yes. There is that element.
But it's not horror music
No.
at all, right?
Far from it.
Far from it. That's
Yes,
what. That's
yes,
what.
yes.
Yeah. So it's not the horror movie of the Kali goddess going into the intestines and so on. You know, we can make these flat images very easily, very quickly. But then it's not divine. So to see in this scary chaos, not the anti-God, but God. It's difficult. In reality, in theory, it's very easy.
Yes.
But when it hits you, it's very difficult.
True. This essential need for equality, samatha. Where do you feel it in music? Or what pieces of music? This absolute samatha.
Well, for sure in the art of the fugue, at least in some of the first one, for example. But also, it's a little bit monochrome, no?
Yes, it is.
When you say this, I immediately would say, but that's why I like the minimal music, because
Yeah.
it's there in a dynamic way. Or in case of, what's the other guy who, Lamont Young, then it's even without the rhythmical steady vibration that it's just one drone.
Drone. Yeah.
Nah, I'm not so
I don't
attracted.
think it, I agree.
I do not so attracted because it is taking an idea, and samatha is an idea. It's also an experience, but as an experience, it is not steady.
And it is not boring.
Because it is not steady.
Yes.
So it's more like sitting at an ocean and see the surf. No wave is like the other. So there is a permanent dynamic in it. And in a music piece, generally, good composers have this for places or for parts. So there can be a background of typically it's backgrounds of some string movement. Say, how is that in Rheingold of Wagner, the long beginning, which is those waves.
Yes.
Yeah, there you have it.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is like super dramatic, but not there. These these women singing these ghosts in the water and going. We can get like this, but especially if you play it for 20 minutes, you better relax a lot, otherwise your hand cramps up.
Mother speaks about him and says that he reached very high planes
I think so.
and very vital planes.
Yes, of course. Essentially, again, romantic.
Yeah.
But for example, he was definitely doing something new, not only in chordal things, but this wanting to break with the opera idea and create what he even called Singspiel then. Having control over the story, over the flow, taking out dance and outward, like previously everything was more like a Bollywood movie, you know. There's the bad villain and we know that, and then they have to dance a little bit and then they shoot each other. And that was opera like Offenbach or something like that.
Yeah,
it was like that. And to have this power from within, Wagner had that power to say, away with all that bullshit.
Yes.
We have to tell a story of a vibrant inner truth. In this case, German, and Germany didn't even yet exist. There was no Germany when he composed. He envisaged that. That's often not so clear because he was misused so much in the Nazi Zeit.
Yes.
But to feel this vibration, this Germanness, which yet has to be formed, that is actually quite visionary.
Very much so. I'm thinking of some of the pieces that resound in my consciousness when I listen to him. Om, 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 om.
Yes.
I mean, extraordinary.
And that, for example, is in terms of intervals and melody building and so on, not new.
Not new at all.
No, but somehow you get that feeling in it that is this vastness, but also this Germanness. It's very German.
Yes.
Because an Italian composer will also feel vastness, but he'll not come up with this feeling description.
True. Very true.
So this is where I have great admiration or receptivity for at least some, particularly The Ring. These kind of things attract me more than his earlier.
Parsifal?
Parsifal also, yes, that's part of that.
Yes.
That, of course, there is this mystic drive there, which naturally we have when we are attracted to Sri Aurobindo. It's also there.
Beautiful ending. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. There will be more. Namaste.